welcome to Artist Alchemy. So we have put this podcast together to kind of like talk to other creatives and kind of get into their mindset of like their process, their inspiration. The idea being is that everybody has everything's so different, but there's probably a common thread in how we approach things. So I'm John Cruz. I'm a portrait photographer based out of Philadelphia.
And I'm Steph. I'm a fantasy photographer based in Lincoln in the UK.
And today we're welcoming Liza Roberts here, who is a fantasy photographer based in Philadelphia. So welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's so nice to have you here. You're our very first guest. I'm excited.
Really? That is exciting.
So I was just talking to John before you got on about how you guys met, and he said that you didn't always used to do fantasy photography, but you used to put like excursions together, and you got loads of creatives together, and you went to New York, which by the way I'm really jealous of because I want to go there. So yeah, tell us how it kind of transpired to be in fantasy. Like, how did it all start?
Sure. Yeah, that's right. I didn't always used to do fantasy photography. I kind of did. I don't know what I would call it. Kind of like street fashion, kind of like just like urban exploration kind of photography.
Okay.
A mix of things. And over the pandemic, I'm a big extrovert, so I was kind of on social media all the time. That was the only way I could connect with people, really.
Yeah.
So I kind of got into cottagecore, which for those listening who may not know what that is, it's kind of this pastoral, cozy, kind of quaint aesthetic that revolves around like the kind of this idea of the English countryside. I guess if you picture that, it's kind of just this sweeping, like whimsical thing. And then from there, I don't know, it's kind of related to fantasy in a way that it's this kind of dreamy, like extra over the top kind of aesthetic. And why I liked cottagecore, once I kind of found out that people actually do fantasy photography, it's a thing, like people are into that. I'm like, that's more me, like Lord of the Rings and Labyrinth, any sort of high fantasy thing. So I just leaned into it. And here I am.
And do you like because quite often there's a lot of like props and backgrounds and stuff like that. Do you tend to put those in shot, or do you do it a lot post-production in Photoshop, or is it kind of a mix of the two?
Sure. No, I actually don't. I do as little post work as possible. I like to do fantasy, but kind of rooted in realism. So that's why you won't see a lot of like, I don't do a lot of fairy type of things because I mean, I've done like fairy wings. I'm not going to add them in post though. I'll like actually like, get like a prop wings and put them on someone, but I'd rather not do that kind of like super like whimsy kind of work. I think it's beautiful, but I prefer to do kind of let's get a real sword, or let's lean into the kind of historic aspect of fantasy. So definitely.
Yeah, I feel you from that, because whenever I tell people that I'm a fantasy photographer, they always think I do like fairies and unicorns. I'm like, no.
No.
Like a bit edgier, I would say mine is.
Yeah.
So yeah. But so yeah, I feel you with that. Yeah, it's not what people perceive it to be. So that's really cool though. So sorry, I'm very aware that I've taken over the conversation. Go ahead, John.
No, it was like when we were putting together a list of people we wanted to talk to, I put you were like one of the early names I put on there. I've been seeing like your progression and where you've been taking this thing, and it was a similar, very a little bit different than from Steph's arc, like of getting into this niche and then really just going all in on the niche and just say, okay, this is what I do now, and it just becomes, the work just became much more like it just became, what's the word I'm looking for, fuller, and just had, you could see there was a passion behind it. So
yeah, thanks.
And I know that you were, what's a little bit different about you too, you were kind of you enjoy that space anyway, right? Like you do like the Lord of the Rings, like what's that? Oh no, Liza, like you were saying when you and I were talking before, you were like, you kind of stumbled into it. Somebody asked you to do it, and you're like, oh my God, I really love this. Where Liza's coming from a different place, where she kind of likes all of the lore of those things, and then said, why wasn't I doing that in my photography? So it's a little bit different path.
Oh, that's really cool. So if someone comes to you, like, do you think of like theme of how you're going to do it, or do people come to you and be like, right, I've got this wild idea, I've seen this character in this book and I want to replicate it, how do we do it? And you're like, right, let me work my brain. Like,
It's
how
some
do you
both. You mean so like my client, or you mean my clients, like if a client comes to me and wants to hire me to do something? Yeah,
yeah
I've had both. Usually people kind of have a like a vague idea, like they want, they know they want a big gown and they want to wear a crown and hold a sword. And so it's kind of yeah, they have an idea. Sometimes people want kind of my input. Usually people have like a loose idea, and then I kind of just embellish it or help them when we're at the shoot, kind of make it their own character. I think if you're in a character, if you have a clear idea, it helps you or helps the client pose more, or kind of really just get into it. They feel more like themselves, or themselves as a character.
yeah
If they have a little more of a story behind it. Yeah. So I
That's
try
really
to help
cool.
that way.
And like, what's your like creative process? So they've come to you and they're like, oh, I've got this idea, I want to do this, and then do you just book them and turn up on the day, or do you send mood boards, or do you like scout for locations, or do you always shoot studio? Like, how do you kind of do it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I I offer location scouting. Location is super important to me. I think,
Yeah
I think in kind of cinematic terms. So I think like the landscape is just as important, to help tell the story that you want to tell. So I offer that to clients unless they already have something in mind. And then yes, I once they tell me their idea, I'm such a visual person. I want to make sure that, what's in my head is kind of what they're also thinking. So I make a mood board using Pinterest. Who doesn't love a good Pinterest board?
yeah always
um, to kind of collect images or any sort of little bit of inspiration that I think
yeah
they might like. And then we can tweak it if we're not on the same page. So that helps.
Yeah, I do something similar actually myself.
Nice.
I was just asking about creative process because me and John were talking last week on the first ever podcast bit about how John sits and listens to their story, like whatever they want to portray as their story, which is like true to them. And so I just wanted to see the difference, even though we're all photographers, we approach it slightly differently. And that's something we discussed last week. So I was just interested to know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is fun to learn.
we
Go ahead,
were
John.
talking
Sorry.
about it. Like my approach is like the exact opposite. It's almost like the reverse. Like yours is the character that they want to play, and me is to figure out the character that they are in the documentary that goes along with that. So it's a different story form, but it ends up, it's one or the other. It's either the role they want to play or the documentary of their life, and what are those two things.
That's
Now,
so
Yeah,
cool. And that totally makes sense to me too, John. Like I can totally
yeah,
see approaching it from that angle because just because I think like our subjects are different types of people, usually probably that, yeah, they want to tell different things about themselves, I guess. Yeah.
Now, for you were talking about setting and cinematography, like that eye, and I totally agree with that. Now, how do you take a lot of like fantasy and mystical is very much like British countryside. So how do you replicate those scenes in Philadelphia, like or the
Sure.
surrounding areas? Like what was your process to go? I'm sure you have some locations that you just started to look and say, okay, I can make this into something, put that in the back, file that away, and then I'll come back to it later.
Yeah. So I love traveling, and I love finding, hidden gems in your own backyard, minus, like you said, is Philly. Um, yeah, I will just like look at Google Maps. I'm a nerd and I just think it's fun to like look at the map and be like, oh, like I'll type in like castle, for example, because people are like, what kind of castles in the United States? That's not a thing. And it's like, well, yeah, like there are some places like even in Philly, like or close to Philly that look like castles or they call castles. So people are really surprised. Like even like I get clients a lot of time, like I want to do this thing, but I have no idea. I'm like, we can find a thing to make it work. Um, so yeah, I think you just have to look and just go exploring in your own backyard. You'll be surprised about what you find. Does that answer the question? Sorry, I
Yeah,
think I
no,
got a little off
absolutely.
track there.
No, because I find it fascinating, like it because for me, usually it's something that's like I'm looking in an urban environment, I'm figuring that out. but like for you, you are you're purposely trying not to do that. And so then you have to look beyond that to go see it. So I was just curious, like what your process was to go scout locations. And yeah, I'm
Gotcha,
definitely,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I would do my job without Google Street View at this point, because like I'll drop a couple pins down and say, okay, what does this look like? Like, do I want to go check that out on my own, or do I want to
Isn't
like
it
just
brilliant
move
to have
on?
that? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
it's like,
nice. It's so
You know,
convenient.
excuse me. You know what's really funny? Listening to you two, I hadn't even considered that because obviously I'm in England and there's lots of like things like castles and like
yeah,
my road is called Tudor Road and it's got like
Oh my gosh.
houses like Tudor type style and like got a cathedral literally like 2 miles away and a castle next to that. So I hadn't even
That's
considered
incredible.
that you guys might not have that. Like I was like, but they're everywhere. But guess they're
Yeah.
not.
I just went to England for the first time in early May,
Oh,
and yeah,
did
I'm just
you?
like
Where did you
so
go?
jealous. I was in Ulverston
Ulverston. I don't
in
even
the
know.
Lake District.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous there.
It's
Lake
so beautiful. Oh my
District is
gosh,
gorgeous.
unreal. Yeah.
Oh wow. So did you just go for a holiday or were you like on a
Someone
work
hired
trip?
me to come over and basically I do creative retreats, like based around different themes. And someone basically hired me to do that for her and two of her friends. And then
So
I was
cool.
like, "Oh, can I bring a friend?" And she was like, "Yeah, absolutely. You can bring a friend." And then that turned into like 10 friends. So it was just like, and everyone had so much fun together, like her
This is
friends and my friends,
amazing.
like all like it was so much fun. Yeah.
And what do you do on those creative? I've never heard of this. What do you do on those creative retreats? That's really cool.
Sure. Yeah, it's so much fun. So in addition to, being a full-time photographer, I would also call myself like an events host, and creative retreats host is 50/50, my job. So these retreats, I pick a location. Sometimes it's close to home. I recently traveled out to Washington State um, to do one of these retreats, and I usually get together 8 to 10 people who are interested even remotely. Like they don't have to be content creators or photographers. One of my retreats, I had like 3 different types of engineers, which was amazing. They're like, "Yeah, I'm a
Oh
software
wow.
engineer, I'm a medical engineer, and I just like fantasy, so I wanted to do it,
That's
to
so
come on a
cool.
retreat." I'm so honored. But then we pick either I pick themes or we pick themes together. So for example, in Washington, we did like kind of old timey, like 1930s explorers, like 1920s, 30s explorers. We did kind of fairies, and then we did, what was the other one we did? We shot with some horses, which was really cool.
Oh wow.
And then, yeah, so they get a bunch of photos from me and then sometimes a guest host, and we just hang out. And then they've got like, nine new friends when they go back home, which
That's
is
so
really cool.
bloody cool. Like that's
Thanks.
so cool. Ah,
It's my favorite part, just seeing people like be able to connect with each other, and then like they come into it pretty timid usually, like about the whole experience. I mean, going across the country with strangers and then
yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
just opening up and seeing, you can do what I do too. Like you can do it.
Yeah. I went this was nothing to do with creativity, but I've been on like I used to be really into like fitness stuff, and I met this group of people, and I went out for a night out in a city called Leeds, and I'd never met them in my life, and I just knocked on the door. I was staying in a hotel with this girl I'd never met. I was like, "Hi, are you my hotel roommate for the night?" She was like, "Yeah, hi." But it was really good though. What I'm saying is like putting yourself in those situations is really fun.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome that you got to have an experience like that. I think everyone
yeah.
should do it.
Well, we were saying all three of us are extroverts and chat boxes, so it kind of suits our personality, I
And
think.
I think that like those types of things, like if you look at like studies that they've looked at like relationships and building relationships, it's like where you have differences, if you have a shared thing that you're talking about, that opens the door for everything else. And then you can start to
Right.
Absolutely.
build those bridges, as opposed to like, sitting behind your phone being keyboard warriors and just getting like rage. And when you actually meet with people and you're working towards something together, it's like, oh, if we're all uncomfortable, we're going to be great. Like this is going to be fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
really cool.
like when you said, because you always had like excursions were always a big part of your personality, like that, because I think that's how I met you. It was like via an excursion that you had done pre-fantasy stuff, but like, what got you into like organizing those? Because for me, I'm the exact opposite. I don't like planning and stuff like that. Like even when I go on vacation, like I'm just going to drop myself into a city and I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out tomorrow. Like I'm not planning anything.
Oh,
So how
man.
did you get into that space? And like what are some things that you've learned along the way as you've done it more?
Sure. That's a good question. Uh, so I think it was probably a little bit selfish. Like I really love to travel. And when I was in my 20s, like mid 20, like, even now, like I'm an artist, like I don't, make a ton of money just to be able to travel all over all the time. So I think I started out with a couple of friends who are also photographers and just like it would be fun to like go to New York for a weekend and just like shoot around and stuff. Uh we have this cool Airbnb, but it's, let's split it a bunch of ways. And like, well, who can we get to go with us who would also want to do this? So we just kind of put a call out to people like, hey, like photographers and models and stuff, do you guys want to come with us and do this thing? And it turned out really well. People had a great time. We got a lot of content, like art out of it. And then it just kind of developed from there. I realized like, oh, people like are really into this and it works out. I can, I just kept pushing it. Like where can I go? Like, how far can I go? And now like, it's just kind of unreal actually to think about it. Like, oh, I went to England. I guess it's working out. Like,
Yeah, like
that.
That's I think is the epitome of like, oh, I've mum, dad, I've made it, because like someone's paying for you to go to another country. Like, amazing.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, I kind of can't believe it. But yeah, so yeah, I just it's fun I love planning. I just always love planning too. You mentioned, you would never do that, but I think I'm such a type A, like extrovert weirdo that I'm like, no, we have to know exactly what's going on. Like I get, I want to have the plan so that I like know it's going to work out. Like I'm not going to get to this place that I paid $1 gazillion to go and then it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
neurotic.
Yeah, I very much, I don't know why. I very much
Yeah.
walk through life with like, I'll figure it out. Like, I'll just like, whatever.
You see,
And then
that's
like,
great though. I love that.
yeah, no, it's just a different, but like, it's just a different like approach to things. And so like, when I see people who do things that like are just way outside of my personality, like I'm interested in that because it's a totally different way of viewing the world.
Sure.
So like,
Which is really cool.
what are some locations that like, you're like, okay, I have to go there at some point. And it's on what are some of the things that you've said, these are places I want to visit.
Sure. Let's see here. Well, I really would love to go back. I've been to France, but when I was in high school, so it's been a long time and like I didn't really get to, do what I do now there. So that would be really cool to go back to like southern France is really beautiful. I am going actually, hopefully I'm in the very early stages of planning with this company called Trova Trip, going to Switzerland next September, which actually wasn't like up there on my list. I mean, sure, why not? I'll go anywhere, but like, yeah, so I have a chance to take like some people with me if they want to book the trip and I'll be the host and go to like a castle in Switzerland and taste wine and chocolate and stuff. So that should be fun.
Like you're living your best life here. I'm like, oh.
I don't know how. It's just like pretty wild. And then like as far as in the United States, I've been lucky to travel around quite a bit within the States. I would still really love to go to New Orleans though. I've never been there. And I think it's such a cool city. I mean, I'm obviously so full of history and it's just a completely different culture from I think anywhere else I've been. So I think that would be really cool as an artist to kind of stretch my just like width a little bit, breadth of knowledge about the world.
And they have, I was only there once, and I didn't do
cool.
most of I was in my early 20s. We didn't do many of the touristy stuff. We basically just drank for a week. But but like I could totally see like they have an entire ceremony. It's a tradition around death and funerals, and
Yeah.
it's an entire beautiful culture. I could see you like dive in, and what is your take on those things? Like
in Switzerland?
No, New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
No, Switzerland's got a whole different thing. And Switzerland is very beautiful. It's very scenic. the mountains are just stunning. But yeah, New Orleans, I guess you like tapping into like, because there's rooted culture there, the Cajun culture.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, John, just because that is one of the reasons I think I'm a little bit like, I have this weird like interest in that kind of ritualistic, like, yeah, the like just the beautiful like jazz bands with the funeral procession. It's more of a celebration than a yeah, but that would be really interesting to see something like that for
Am
sure.
I thinking of the same thing where that it's like the Day of the Dead or the Carnival of the Dead or something, and they have those like masks
It's
on, I think.
I think I'm going to probably be wrong, but I think that they're probably not. They're probably branches of the same tree. It's a different ceremony. It's a different culture. But
Different
like,
culture,
Okay.
yeah.
but if you
Oh
trace
God.
back the lineage of different cultures, like you know, most of the Cajun cultures come from the Western Caribbean, which depending on migratory patterns, it could be coming from South America, which the Day of the Dead is more of a Mexican tradition.
Okay. Sorry for my
So
ignorance.
That's okay.
no, because like I think that it's like anything else. It's like if you trace things back far enough, like they come from, it's either or it's either parallel thinking where like the pyramids in the Mayan pyramids versus the Egyptian pyramids, it's just parallel thinking, or like did they come from a similar place? And I think that that's fascinating to walk back, and especially since you're traveling through history with your photography, it's a way to explore how cultures evolve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as much as fantasy informs my work, I think history does too. So, yeah, I think that would be really cool to have that experience and then kind of, yeah, see what can make from that and just like talk to the different cultures in New Orleans would be just a really cool experience. Yeah.
Because in America, like you can go from state to state and it can feel like a different country sometimes, right?
For
Yeah.
sure.
So do you find that like people approach things differently when they shoot with you from like different locations, even if it's in the same country, like their approach is different and maybe their expectations are different as well?
That's a good question. Trying to think about that. I know, I mean, so having friends come out from the West Coast and versus me going from the East to the West Coast is definitely interesting. I mean, we definitely talk about, oh, I can't believe like it's so beautiful out here. And we're like, what? Like it's just like, for example, the first time I went to LA, we were driving through the mountains to go to Malibu, like so I could see the beach for the first time, and we were going to shoot at the beach. And of course I've been to the beaches like on the eastern coast, but oh my gosh, I was not prepared. I was just like emotional about, and my friend who grew up there was like, I guess I never thought about that, like how, must look so different for you. Like this is just so normal to me.
Yeah.
So of course there's that, but as far as work goes, I'm trying to think if there's any that it like informs or like it makes a difference. I guess just taking like those kind of locations for granted, when you're
Yeah.
working. I'm sure there's places here that I think like I don't know what I'm going to do with this location, but if someone were to come from the West Coast, they'd be like so inspired to do different things there that I never would have thought of. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Like because
no, I was gonna say, I remember there was an architecture conference here years ago, and a couple of my friends, this was like when I was in architecture school and I was like active on Twitter, I met a couple of people from all over the country that were architects, and they were coming in for the conference, and they were from California. They had never been to this side, and taking them to like Elfridge Alley, which is the oldest continually inhabited street in America. It's all, it's cobblestone, it's brick houses. Like they don't know that level of old in
Right.
LA. Like they don't know what cobblestone streets feel like in America. It's just like a weird, it was like, and for us, like we probably walk past it like, hundreds and
It's
hundreds of
like,
times.
yeah.
Right. But for them, it was like, okay, we're gonna go see that. And we're gonna go because it's a totally different approach to things. Like
hmm
everything's much more modern and on the West Coast because it was developed way later.
Yeah.
yeah. It's fun though. I love hearing about all these different places and how people perceive things. Mhm.
Now, what are some themes that are there some themes that you're just like, I did it, I loved it, I want to revisit it? Like, are there some where, like, are there some that you put on the shelf and said, I did it, I love it, I never want to do that again? Or is it, or there's always like, oh, I know how to do that differently now? Like, how do you creatively, when you, because there's, I'm sure we've all done it. It's like, okay, I took that shot, I absolutely adore it, I'm never going to get that again. That's the end of that, and I'm not going to try to recreate it. But there's other
Sure.
times where we were like, we want to go revisit the well. So what are some themes that you've found that you've maybe new ins to? Like, you're like, okay, this is how I approached it the first time, but now I see a new angle on this.
That's exciting because I think about that a lot. So I did one that I would love to do, like, and do it really big. I think we did pirates. I did a pirates, like all
That's really cool.
female, like women pirates shoot back in like a couple Januaries ago, a couple years ago. And it was so much fun, but it was freezing and we loved the shots. They were beautiful. Like, I'm so happy with the way they came out. But I would love to get like a big production, like get an old ship and like really do it and like do some like film work with it too. I've been trying to find ways to bring film work in, even if I don't do it. I have some friends I met recently, Jacob and Phil, who are really amazing with film, like video cinema work. So even if I don't do it, I would love to bring elements of that into the like productions that I do. Just I think it's so valuable to have that, especially with, you know, TikTok being a huge thing right now. So pirates would be fun. What else? I'm always up to do like knights again. I love swords. Who doesn't love swords? Yeah.
Would you ever do anything that's like so I did a shoot, this was like last year now, but of 7 Deadly Sins.
Oh, that sounds
Um,
cool.
yeah, and I didn't get all the sins though, because at the time I'd only been doing photography for like 4 months. So I didn't know loads of people. But I was recently talking to someone and we found this big old mansion that they've now turned into a space where you can go and hire it for like 4 hours
Oh,
and
cool.
shoot. And it's got like grand pianos and like curling stairs and like it's just got loads of character, but it's kind of a little bit disheveled as well. And I was like, oh, we could do something like that. But has yours always got to be? Do you see what I mean by that theme? Isn't like a physical theme. Do you know what I mean? It could have
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's more like a like a concept that you have that's not just like yeah, I'm trying to think. No, I've definitely done stuff like that before. I'm trying to think back through the stuff that I've done. I mean, I would love to do a shoot based on like Eurydice, the Orphean myth, which I guess is like you can kind of interpret that. It's what you're saying, like something that's a little like you can kind of interpret it in a bunch of different ways. It's not like this set, like one thing. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I've definitely had stuff like that before, but I can't think off the top of my head like what it would be. But yeah, for sure.
When you have these ideas, whatever they might be, the pirates one, do you put it out as like a almost like a casting call, or do you just see who wants to do it TFP, or do you wait for a client to come to you and be like, do you want to do this, or how do you kind of go about the ones that you want to do?
Sure. I'll do it a couple different ways. So the retreats I was talking about earlier, I do them with friends sometimes, and that in that case, it would be that's something I would do. Like if I had a concept in mind that I wanted to do and just wanted to like hang out with my friends, then I would just like cast my friends or ask them who they wanted to be. Or if I'm trying to, you know, I love to work with new people and I want to, I'm really trying to diversify my work in more ways. So if I'm, you know, looking to diversify more, I'll put out a casting call, which is really fun for me. And then sometimes the other way I'll do it is if I'm doing like a for-profit retreat where, you know, I'm traveling with people. I just did one similar to that, where I did a Midsummer Night's Dream, and we decided on the theme as a group, and then we kind of just randomly picked, you know, people said, oh, I'd like to be Hermia or whatever. And then if 3 people said that, then we just kind of randomly pick someone. But all the ways are fun. Like it's so much. I have an acting like theater background, so it's really fun to kind of play that like director role.
Oh yeah, that's another overlap.
That's so strange. Yeah, so yeah, I like went to drama school and like
Oh, wow.
and then used to gig, and then I taught I used to train the kids that go into like the West End, like it'd be your equivalent of Broadway, like so the kids, so like trying to think of shows off the top end, like Annie or like
Oh, yeah.
the Jackson 5 one. So I used to train the kids. I worked for a theatre school who trained the kids to go into the West End, and we had an agency and
That's
stuff. But
amazing. Yeah.
I think, but me and John were saying, I think that element of having that theatrical background has like weaved its way back in,
Yeah,
back into
for
our work.
sure.
And yeah, I know I like mine to look a bit dramatic and a bit theatrical. And the
Yeah, me
brands
too.
I've worked with actually have been dance troupes, theatre people, music artists, and like experience brands where like they have live actors. That so I'm happy with that because it's like
Yeah,
taking me
that's
back to
so
my roots.
cool. I'm excited to see more of your work now. Yeah.
Oh, it's, yours is amazing. It's like our styles are quite different, I think. But as soon as John sent your like your Instagram through, I was like, oh my god, obsessed. I love it.
Thanks.
So I wanted
So
to, because I wanted to ask a question like based on that, based on the theater experience, because like you're playing a lot of parts in these sessions. So it's you have the idea, you have the actual photography, but then there's the costume design and picking out like you know, props and things like that. You also have set design. So where do you start with the process, or is it depends on the idea? You say, okay, I have this prop and now I got to figure out a world it lives in, or I have this world I've seen and let me see who I can cast for it. Like how like what's your process when you think about those things in separate silos?
Sure, that's a good question. Usually I have like a world, like I think that's the word you used, or like an idea, and then I'm like, okay, who do I know that I can like want for this part or this role? Or um sometimes like my friends and I'll be talking and like about an idea, and like we just kind of like throw ourselves into those roles or whatever. But yeah, it's really fun. I'm glad I have a good group of friends and a lot of people who trust me to be like this, kind of wearing a lot of hats, just because I get excited and then I'm like taking on all the things, which I love doing. I'm a little bit crazy for it, but I'm gonna design, like, here's what I want the costumes to like go find something that looks like that. Like, I'm so glad you trust me because I'm asking a lot of you. I'm sorry, but it's fun. Yeah, I think it usually turns out pretty well, but
I was going
yeah,
to
did
ask
that
you about this myself actually, because I was like, props and costume stuff are expensive, like decent ones are expensive. And I was like, I've always wondered like how do people do it? Like they have some people have like a whole client closet. I'm like, but everyone's different shapes and sizes. So even if you had a
yeah,
cool dress, doesn't mean it's going to fit them. So I was
right.
like, I've always wondered how people do it. Like, how do other fancy photographers have a whole client? Like
Yeah,
I
I'll be
have like
interested to
three
hear what you
things.
have to say. Yeah, do you do that?
I've got a few dresses that I've bought, but yeah, not so much. I do a lot of this, well, not a lot of stuff. I try to get in as much in the shot as possible, but then other times I just add bits on the top. But most of the time I'm like, oh, can you just dress like this? And it normally works.
Yeah.
But yeah, it always mesmerizes me when I'm like, oh, how do you get like that's like thousands and thousands of pounds worth there. But
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some really impressive like client wardrobes or like client closets. I think it was, yeah, the word you
yeah,
used. I have a bunch of costumes, but a lot of them are my size. Because I do self-portraits a
same.
lot too, or I will model sometimes. But yeah, I've been trying to collect pieces as I see them, or sometimes I'm fortunate that brands will be like, we'd love to send you some things, and I'll try to get them in different sizes just so I have them and a more diverse and inclusive
Yeah.
wardrobe. But yeah, and sometimes like I just did a circus shoot with a bunch of friends. And obviously those are very specific costumes. So I have a bunch of friends who are like just as crazy as I am, and they're like, yeah, we'll like make her find a costume that's, looks exactly like this, or um people loan us things, so it worked out somehow. So yeah.
That's good. It's good to know though that like I'm not going crazy and like
No, you are not the only one. I'm often wonder, how do people have all this stuff that's like
Yeah,
in
and
this
it's the
like
space
amazing
as
range of
well.
sizes? Yeah.
Do you have like a
Yeah,
wall
I
of
like
swords? Like,
I bought some sword hooks. I would love to have a sword wall. I'm trying to make my basement into like my little studio right now. It's kind of in disarray. I have too much stuff, but yeah, that would be awesome to have a sword wall.
like
choo-
I haven't even
bring the
used it
client
yet.
in, like choose your weapon. Like, let's
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
You mentioned video earlier. Do you think video helps you grow like your client list? Do you think that's what's brought in like new people being aware of what you offer, your creative retreats or things like that? Do you think it's down to video rather than just showing your photography, or you do
Photography.
ads? I don't know.
Sure. So I will say TikTok has definitely helped me grow my client list and grow my audience. Surprisingly, I will get people writing me through my website or following me on Instagram who's like, "Oh, I found you on TikTok," which is awesome. It reminds me like I need to post on TikTok more. But I am not the greatest at like. So I have some friends who are amazing. Like they make these cinematic, like cinema quality aesthetic video works, which is what I aspire to. But I'm like, how do you have the time to like, do all
Yeah,
that? I feel like, I've really grounded myself in photography work. So usually if I'm doing like a TikTok or a video, it's like, I did this kind of shoot and here's how I did it. Or here's, I'll turn photos into a reel. I feel like is a really classic photographer trick. Just
yeah,
like, here's some photos I took of lady nights. It's just
yeah.
whatever, just to, get it in front of people. How about you? Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, well, it's because I still have a 9 till 5 as well. So I fit
Wow.
my photography in the evenings and weekends at the minute. And my current 9 to 5 are super flexible. So if I need to go off for a shoot, they'll let me, but I still try and work it
That's
around.
nice.
So then I'm working all week, and then I normally do shoots at the weekend, and then I'm editing in the evening. So then I'm like, so I've got to edit, and I've got to update my website, and I've got to get a few TikToks out and some Instagram and Instagram stories. So
Yep.
it's loads to keep on top of, and sometimes one of them has to give, even if it's just for like a few days, just because I'm like, I don't actually have the capacity, or I'm just really knackered.
Yeah, no, I get
So
it. I do.
yeah, so but I think the feedback I've got has always been it's really interesting to see behind the scenes, because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my raws never look like my finished product, because I've added like magical bits in. That sounds
Mhm.
really fairies. It's not fairies. You'll see. It's not fairies.
If it
John
is fair,
knows what
I
I'm
meant no
talking
offense
about.
to fairies. That's just
No,
not
oh
what I
God,
do.
no. But I always feel like fairies is like quite, as you said, quite whimsical and quite soft. Whereas I think
Yeah.
my photography is quite in your face and quite like, someone called it today edgy, and I quite liked that, so I'm going to go with
Nice.
that. So yeah, I was just interested to hear how you kind of go about it, because did you, before you went into fantasy, did you have already like a list of clients, and then how did you break to them that you were like going to go from this urban street fashiony stuff to, how did you like
Yeah, I didn't.
transition?
So I quit my job about a year ago in the beginning of June, my 9 to 5, which I was like an office manager at a digital marketing agency. And it sounds kind of like you're like, what?
Digital marketing in
You're
my
in
nine
digital
to five.
marketing?
In my 9 to 5, yeah. That's
All
so
right.
funny.
Well, we're just the
Like,
same
are we the
person.
same
John's
person,
like,
or?
I see what you did, John. You're like, I know people who are actually the same. And like,
How
No, right.
weird is that?
Now you're gonna have to like, you're just gonna have to like go across the pond and back and do excursions on either side and just.
absolutely. Come on over.
We so should. Well, I was saying I actually turned 40 in December, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to go to like, I don't know, to have a big party or to like go traveling somewhere. I don't know.
Go travel, do it.
I know. It's getting, yeah. But yeah, but my 9 to 5 is in like, I work for a health company, so it's really far removed from this. Like I still get to do creative bits, but it's
No, yeah.
quite sensible.
Sorry, could you hear that? I live in
No,
in Philly, so it's like very loud outside right now. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
It's like crashing.
Is Philly
Um,
nice? I feel like I don't
I
know
love
much
it.
about
Do you
Philly.
like it, John? Are you
Yeah,
from
I
here
do.
originally, John?
Yeah, I grew up probably about, I grew up in the suburbs in Delco, so I was like about 15 minutes from where I live now, so.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm originally from Ohio, so I really love the city. I grew up in rural Ohio, so.
Oh, so
Oh,
that's a big culture shift. Yeah. So for me, this was always my city. So it's
Yeah.
just then it was just moving into the city because I didn't want to. One of the things about living in the city, I don't like driving everywhere. Like I like being able to just walk and take public transit, like and just do that and not have to like get in my car to do everything, you know?
Yeah. My husband's the same way. He's like, I'm just like, he grew up in Texas. They're both transplants, but I like having the car just so I can like, I don't know, travel places, but he's like, I don't need it. You take it. I'll just take the trolley everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
so I live in a city called Lincoln, but it's a city but surrounded by countryside. It's in the county of Lincolnshire, which is just like lots of countryside. um so it's one of the few cities in it, but we live on like the outskirts, so we've got like a lake and a forest right next to us, but like
Oh,
to get
wow.
into the city, like you have to drive. Well, no, you can take the train, but I always drive.
Yeah.
Just easier.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's on your wish list? What's next? Like what are some things that you're not ready to do yet, but you're kind of like you're putting the ingredients in the pot and seeing what you got.
Sure.
I'm
Well,
excited.
it's kind of in very early stages. So I mean, I'm kind of doing it, so I'll cheat a little bit, but we haven't started yet. We're doing Jacob and Phil, who I mentioned earlier, who I met doing my circus project, and my friend Charlotte, who's also a content creator. We are going to do a big Golden Age of Hollywood project. Um, so it's going to be a bunch of friends and I, and like some new folks that we've like cast,
Mhm.
doing a shoot that's kind of in the style of an after party for like that would be like an after party for an awards show, like during like the Academy Awards or something, but like in the 1950s 60s. So it's very like specific weird niche thing, but I don't really
I'm
see
here for it.
anyone doing anything like that, so I think it'll be really fun. And then we're also hoping to make it kind of an actual party, like maybe for patrons. So like I'm doing something similar, like a Greenlees, which is based on the Mirkwood Forest from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Mhm.
It was a patron-backed event. So it's like a photo shoot, but then patrons get to come enjoy a dinner like on the set, basically. So circling back to the Golden Age thing, it's going to be kind of like that, where we do a shoot, but then patrons for this whole art project get to come and enjoy the party is kind of what we're aiming for. We're
That's so
still
cool.
toying around with some ideas, but yeah, that's my big, like, kind of dreaming about that project right now.
And when are you hoping to do that?
We are hoping for Valentine's Day next year. Very specific because we may or may not be working with a hotel, so we're trying to make it appealing for them. And Valentine's Day is actually really selling like a hot selling time for hotels. So get away
Okay.
and have a romantic like dinner/party, and yeah.
And then you'll be there just like take photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I guess it won't really, it'll be kind of, I mean, will it be like posed or will it be like candid?
So it's a little confusing. It's a weird idea. So the idea is that we will be on site for maybe a week, and we'll have 2 to 3 days to actually make the content, like posed shots and like some kind of candid, but pose, like
Mhm.
Yeah.
they look candid
Yeah.
Yeah.
shots.
Yeah.
But then when the patrons come for the actual party, like they'll get photos, but then we won't be like creating content the whole time. It'll just be like a
Yeah.
party. So yeah.
And you say the patrons, are they who's patrons?
So patrons would be people who like gift their resources, money, or like costumes or whatever to the project. So, for
Okay,
example,
okay.
my Lord of the Rings project, people actually paid to come stay on site and have a dinner with myself and other big name content creators, and like the whole creative team. So the costumers, the makeup artists, and um, etc. And then they have other rewards too, like prints from the shoot or a cookbook actually that's like Elven
Oh,
inspired. So they'll get like little gifts depending on what patron tiers they've gifted to. So
And what was that? Did that idea come from your brain? Because that's like genius.
um so my friend kind of challenged me to do a project like this, like kind of have a patron backing, but do a specific theme and then just put all the money back into the project. Like I'm not making anything from it. It's just art for art's sake.
Yeah.
And someone suggested that I do like an elf banquet. I'm like, okay. And then I just kind of narrowed into Tolkien's world a little bit more, since Tolkien's always amazing, but Rings of Power was coming out at the time that I was starting this project. So yeah,
That's
kind
so
of.
cool. And the hotel, are they just like, yeah, sure? Like, are they?
Hotel for the Golden Age project. They were
Yeah.
very excited about it. Yeah, we're still kind of waiting to hear back from them about the specifics. But yeah, they're pretty excited about it, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful space. So hoping it
Yeah. Yeah.
all the pieces connect. Yeah.
That's so
I
cool.
feel like there's a
That's
real
so cool.
opportunity there. Like when you think about, I mean, there's two things going on. One, there's probably not going to be a whole lot of like consumable content coming out with the writer's strike going on. And it gives people an opportunity to immerse themselves into a story. We're looking at screens too much anymore. And it gives them an
Yeah.
opportunity to like immerse themselves into something completely different. I think that's a very cool idea.
Thanks.
You know
Yeah,
what?
I know
I
a lot
really
of
think
people are
people.
doing these. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go on. I spoke
No,
over. Sorry.
no, I was just saying, I know a lot of people are or companies or groups are hosting these like immersive experiences now, are like really a huge hot ticket item. Like I just went to the Bridgerton experience with my friend in New York, which is fun. But yeah,
Was
so
it
it's fun
amazing?
to kind of do one of those like myself. It's fun to just dream up a little world. And again, it goes back to kind of, it's this theatrical thing. You can build a little set and have people dress up and come play in your, world. It's fun.
Yeah. I myself love going. Also, this is what I was going to say before I really overspoke you. Sorry.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I love going to immersive experiences. Like even things like escape rooms or like
Mhm.
theatre things. I went to one in London just before lockdown, and it was like Peter Pan, but it was
Oh,
had like a
cool.
dark twist on it, and like you'd go into one room and they'd be doing one scene, and then you'd have to crawl through this like little hatch and go into another room, and there'd be a completely different scene going on, and but they'd speak to you like you're part of it, and it was
Oh,
really cool.
cool.
So this is how I imagine this to be, and I kind of want to go, even though I'm not a patron and I don't live
Come
over
on over.
there. Woo!
Yeah, it should be fun. I hope. I've never done anything like it. So August 5th is the Lord of the Rings thing that I'm doing. So
That's
yeah.
And that's a
awesome.
really, that's a, that's a huge world. Like the Tolkien world is like, and as we've seen, like with new, Rings of Power coming out, like there's a lot of like stories you can tell coming out of just that one world that he created.
Yeah, for sure. That's why I decided to kind of narrow it down to elves, but specifically like the wood elves, like Legolas, like kind of his world, kind of of the wood, Mirkwood. Like I said, Mirkwood Forest is, that specific world.
That's awesome. So I have another question. If there are some people who are like, I don't know, students or like, or maybe they're not students, maybe they're fully grown adults who've always liked that kind of thing, how would you say, and they wanted to get into like photography or like fantasy stuff, like what would you say to them? How do they go about that?
Sure. Don't, I guess, just go out and do it. Just start small. Don't be intimidated by, I know it's hard because you want to just like do the thing already, but um you want to, sorry, let me restart. Just go out and practice first, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Go out,
Yeah,
grab a camera, grab a friend who, isn't afraid to be a little silly with you. Or, take self-portraits, grab a tripod if you can't find a friend who has the time. And just take a bunch of shots. Who cares if they're good or not? You find out what you like and you don't like that way, even if it's not like technically correct.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And if you like it, there's surely other people who are going to like it. And it took me
yeah,
a long time to figure that out. That's kind of why my style switched so drastically. It was I liked what I was doing, but it wasn't really me. So once I like really like, you know what? I'm a nerd. Like, I should be doing nerd things. And I'm like, well, other people like that though. And like, it turns out there's a bunch of nerds. So
Right. Right. I feel
yeah,
the same.
just,
Like mine used to be like I used to call it like moody cinematic almost.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
then I like transitioned to fantasy last November by like pure luck because I got invited to come shoot a futuristic fashion photo
So
shoot, and then
cool.
from there it just like transcended, and now I'm like, why wasn't I doing this the entire time?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you ever, so the reason how me and John know each other is because I had a very well-known photographer who's amazing, like amazing photographer. She does family portraits, which obviously very different to anything we as guys do. And
Mhm.
she basically said that I shouldn't be doing the type of photography I do because no one wants it. And I find that surprising because she's a creative, and like I was a bit like, and so I made a TikTok about it, basically going like, absolutely, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So, and that's how, and then John stitched it, and that's how we know each other. So, do you ever get any like comments from other photographers or other people like, why do you do that? Like, why have you got a wizard in it?
No, I've been pretty lucky. Everyone's been pretty kind. I mean, the only time that I'm people are like, "What is like in real life?" Like when I meet someone like in person and they're like,
Yeah,
ask what I do, and tell them I'm a photographer. Then like, what kind of photo? Like, you do
I
like
do weddings.
landscapes? I'm
yeah,
like, well, like I'm a fantasy photographer. I like do like dress up, and like people pay me to like dress up and then take pictures of them with like swords and like castles and stuff. And then
yeah,
sometimes people are like, well, how do you make a living doing, like, do people actually pay you to do that? And I'm like,
yeah.
I guess I'm lucky. I don't know. Like, but no, for the like, I haven't had anyone be unkind or like tell me, be blunt like that. I can't, I'm sorry you had that experience. That's not,
Oh, like, do you know what? I was just like, okay. So I was part of her group, which she taught like the business side of photography. And so that's why I was in that group. And then, but she also sells a family photography course. So I was like, are you telling me not to do this because you want me to buy your course? And I was
oh
like, do you
yeah.
know what? And just, I said nothing and just left the group because I was like, this table is not serving me. You are not my
That's the
people.
best way to, yeah, just
Yeah,
ignore people. Yeah.
yeah.
But I think that,
Oh,
and you and I talked about this, like, I really do think that, like, in some ways, like, she could have been trying to sell her thing, and that's one thing. But I think that certain people make it to a thing, and they got there doing this, so they assume that's the way you do it. As
yeah,
opposed to, if you, if you really look at the way businesses work, the only way you're gonna find success, if you find a lane that no one else is in. Like, that's
Mhm.
just, because otherwise, then all you're doing is competing on price. If you and I make the exact same widget, then it's just gonna be who's cheaper, because the widget's the
Right.
same. But if I
yeah,
find a lane that is so unique, well, now the pricing is not an issue, because, well, that's how much this costs. Well, I saw it cheaper somewhere else. I know that you didn't, because nobody else is making this,
No one else is
you
doing it.
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's such a good way to look at it. And I don't know how you feel about this, Liza. I was saying this last week. Like the business side of stuff, I really struggle with. Just because I just like doing it for doing it. But then obviously like it gets to a point where you're like, I'm putting a lot of hours into this and it's taking up a lot of my time. So like I need to charge, which I do. But yeah, I just struggle with the business side as a creative person. I'm like, it makes me cringe a bit. Like,
No, I'm the same way, and we're definitely not the only ones. I mean,
yeah,
it's difficult. Like when it's like, I really want to do it, and that was something I really had to learn. I mean, I'm still learning that too,
yeah,
about
me
how
too.
to what to price, and like who, I do collaborations a lot with friends, and so like how do I draw a line between when I need to charge and when I need to collaborate with people,
Right.
even if they are super talented and I want to, like, I can't do that all the time, otherwise, you know,
Yeah.
not
So
making it's my job.
how do you draw that line then? That's a question I would say.
Ooh,
How do
that's
you?
that's a I think it's just kind of a like a intuitive thing. That's a bad answer. Like, it's not a like fully explanatory answer, but I just kind of have to decide, I
Are you just
guess.
making your
Like,
decisions on vibes, like on vibes alone?
vibes,
Like,
John. Yeah, that's basically.
I've
no, because
So
started
I just
I was gonna
maybe.
ask you something similar, because I run into this, like, there are there's certain creative things that I want to explore that are not that I don't have anybody willing to pay me for it right this second. And so like, am I willing to take the time because I really want to go do that and then just gather a friend and just go explore something? Or do I just put it on the back burner until I find a client that's willing to do it? And sometimes it's just like, okay, I need a sandbox where I can just go make all the mistakes and I can do that for free. And that's
that's a great
really
way to put it. Yeah. I think, now that you mentioned that, I think I do a similar thing. Like if I have a project that I really want to do and I really want to have like complete control over it and like just really make sure, then it's something I'm willing to do as a collaboration, because I don't feel as bad like pushing certain aspects of it. Or it's okay if I mess it up. Like it's okay to like just, it's sandboxy, like you said. I like that word. But if it's, if a client comes to me with an idea that maybe I'm not as excited, or if someone who wants to collaborate comes to me with an idea that I've already done, or if something that I'm not quite as excited about, then like, like have to pass on this one, or like I'm willing to do it like as a job or whatever. But
yeah. I think the way I've started looking at it is if it adds something to, if I get something out of it as well, like maybe they've come up with an idea that I hadn't thought of, or that's something that might be missing from my portfolio, I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's do that. But if it's something like I get approached, I don't know why, I don't know what my work gives off, but I get approached quite often about doing excuse me, like lingerie shoots. I'm like, none of my stuff is lingerie. Like what? So I'm like, what is my stuff giving off that's making you think I do that? So I've had to turn like a couple down, well, quite a few down. But yeah, so I always find that interesting. And I also think, and this used to happen sometimes in the theatre industry as well, is no other industry would be like, oh my God, I love your work, I'd love to work with you for free. Like you wouldn't go to a lawyer or a doctor or a plumber and be like, hi, I love that kitchen you put in that person's house, I'd love you to come and do it for free. Like collab.
A lot of people like do that to artists specifically, I think, and especially with social media, because they're consuming all the like work that you do for free. So it's kind of like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you like? You do stuff with, or they'll see you doing something with friends, for example, which I do a lot, and they're like, oh, well, you work with Australia all the time. I don't understand like why. I'm like, well, it's a good question, and like, but she's like my best friend, and I don't know, it's really kind of sticky. Like I get that.
Yeah, I had somebody, I posted a reel, it had a single image in it. It's like, oh, I can't wait to see the rest of the set. I'm like, this is it. Like what I decide to put out here is what I decide to put out here. Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel free to hire me to get your own, but like that's not how any of this works. But I do think it is a weird like intersection of like, oh, but like, because I had one woman call me like 3 times for, after I told her what I do, what the process is. It's like, oh no, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for this. I'm like, okay, well that's not something I do. Like they were coming into town for a weekend and they just wanted a couple shots. I'm like, well, that's like, I do wall pieces. Like we got to talk about like what's going on the wall. Where's it going? Like, that's not what I'm looking for. And then she called me back and asked if I had an intern that I could, and I'm like, no, like it's just me.
Oh, that's so bizarre.
Then she called me later to see if I knew, and like if I could, like if I looked for any other photographer for her, and I'm like, no, like that. We're done now.
People don't understand sometimes, and it's like, that's all you can do is like, sorry, I don't do that.
It is interesting when now, so you and I have both done this, and I think Steph's on a trajectory to do this. How difficult did you find turning something that you literally did for free for fun, and you said, okay, now I'm going to make a living off this? Like, what was your mindset when you said, okay, I'm ready to change my mindset, where it's not like I'm going to grab my camera and I'm just going to grab a friend and we're going to do some cool stuff and post it on Instagram and call it a day. Like there was a point where you decided, okay, I'm going to make this into a job. And how was that transition for you?
Well, I did that with the retreats first because I had been doing them for quite a while, and I just slowly started charging like a little bit more until I felt like I finally feel like I'm at the point where like I'm getting like a fair profit, a fair wage for myself. The photography thing was definitely harder. I clung on to my 9 to 5 for a long time. and I probably should have been a little smarter, but I felt like if I just didn't like jump off the edge, I never would have done it. It was just like scary. It's really scary. So the answer for that, for photography is like, yeah, I didn't really know. Like, I don't know. I felt like if you wait too long, like you're just not going to do it. So you just have to like kind of force yourself a little bit sometimes, I think.
Yeah. That's the position I'm in now. I think my hesitation at the minute is that it's not regular enough to make me feel secure.
No, that's yeah.
Like, so I'm like,
No, I get it. I'm very fortunate.
Scary.
I mean,
I have a mortgage
in here
and a
listening. My
kid.
husband like is very supportive. My family is very supportive. That yeah, I was worried about the same thing, Stephanie, that it wouldn't be, and sometimes it's not. It's still scary. But I, supplement it with working for different brands if I can, or like doing like just kind of one-off job type of like stuff that I find. So it's not all like, glamorous like retreats and doing like fun photography. Glamorous.
You have a fully restored pirate ship that you travel the world in and land in different cities and do a session, get back on your ship and go off to the next location.
Yeah, I wish.
I actually love working with brands though. I find it quite interesting. And I was saying to John, I'd quite like to do like, this is like pie in the sky stuff, but I'd quite like to do like movie posters and like album covers and stuff. Like that really interests me.
Cool. Yeah, that would be really fun.
So yeah, that's my pie in the sky idea. But it's exciting, but it's just scary. Also, what I've noticed as well between England and America is that, like, I don't know one single person who goes and has photo shoots, like pays to have photos, like, but it's a thing. Like, you guys have like seniors.
Oh, yeah, the senior
And,
portraits
like,
from the graduation high school. Yeah.
Graduation ones, and like we might have a photo at graduation, but that's from a photographer who the university hired at graduation day. Like, it's not like, occasionally you might have like newborn photos done, but like it's not really a big thing here. Like, so me trying to work out how and who to market to is been quite a journey. I'm like, oh, okay. But
that's interesting you mentioned that, because when John told me that there was like the co-host was a fantasy photographer in England, I was like, because I have some friends who are interested in the fantasy genre in England, but they're trying to do a retreat over there, my friend and I, and they're like, there's not really a market for that over here. Like, there's not really people who, and so that's interesting. I was really excited to hear that there was like a fantasy photographer in England.
So I've had a lot of people book, I think, or inquire at least, and then cancel. So I'm like, So I know there's bites there, and obviously I do get people booking with me as well, and working with a couple of brands as well. But I'm tapping into like the cosplay community, which is quite big over here, and like the steampunk. So I do steampunk myself. I love it. So that kind of thing. But also that's what's made me also think, okay, brands, because brands need stuff for marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And theater, like you said, is great. Yeah.
So that's the two kind of things I'm trying to tap into. And I'm making little dints in.
Good for you.
I only picked up a camera for the first time in March last year, so
that's awesome.
So it's been a whirlwind.
I want to be mindful of time. Liza, thank you so much for joining us. Where can everybody find you? And
keep having me
and get the free stuff of what you're putting out, and then hopefully
happy to share.
They'll be enticed to hire you. But like, where can everybody find your work?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Lizabeth, Lizabet Roberts, and my website's the same, lizabetroberts.com. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for your time.
Happy to. I'll see you guys again soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.